Welcome to the podcast that broadcasts from Revelstoke, BC.
We're bringing you stories from the back eddies and undercurrents of a mountain town.
I'm Jill McDonald.
And I'm Nora Hughes.
This is Mountain Underground. Good morning.
Hey Jill, how's it going?
Good, Nora. Sunny out. Life is good. It changes everything.
It does.
Yeah.
We moved back an hour? No, we sprung forward an hour.
Yes, we did.
And now it's nice and sunny when we're recording, which is new for us.
Yeah, it is new for us. We got to go outside, which was super exciting.
We did get to go outside today, which was very exciting.
Unplanned improvisation turned out really well. At least I think so.
I hope so. It did.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about community in this place. So community in Revelstoke.
So how did that come up?
That came up, I think, because the reason I moved here was because of this expectation that I would be doing all these. I found this town because of all these outdoor things, right? And I came here thinking I would be doing those all the time and like mountain biking and skiing. And I do those things, but I think I'm a lot more immersed in the community than I thought I was going to be.
Even though you came here having graduated from a journalism background.
Yeah, well, yeah, my background was in adventure studies, adventure photojournalism. So it was a little bit of a mix. Yeah, but when I came here, I was pretty quickly plopped into a role of a community reporter. Mm-hmm. And that gave me a whole new perspective on this place. Well,
let's hear about that a little bit, and then we'll go into our guest.
Yeah, I just realized that there's so much going on in this town, which, you know, our guest kind of plays into a little bit. But I had a couple different roles. I saw a couple different perspectives. But being the community reporter for this place, I realized how essential our community and the heartbeat of, sounds kind of cliche, but like the heartbeat of the people here is to what makes this place the place that it is. It's like kind of a confusing sentence, but it's so much more than just a place with a ski resort. It's so much more than a place that is surrounded by mountains and has a river running through it. It's so much more than all of that. And I think our guest today describes that pretty well, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I feel somewhat similar to you. Not that I came here and became immersed in journalism, but I think it sprung out of this desire to speak up for a lifestyle and a way of being that I feel is disappearing or being threatened. And I just want to defend our town and, in essence, our province from being overrun by something that isn't true.
Yeah. So like I discovered maybe what you're talking about, and you had you know, the notion to want to defend it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who are we talking to today, and how did you come up with our guest?
Today we're talking to Chris Miller, and Chris and I have crossed paths basically in every job that I've had in Revelstoke. So I haven't had that many jobs. But when I first got here, I started working for the Chamber of Commerce, just in their visitor center, and wouldn't you know it, Chris also worked there part-time, and he was at one of the very first staff dinners that I had there. So that was my first introduction to Chris. And yeah, Chris is a pretty memorable person. He's got a crazy, like an awesome sense of humor. He's so talkative. He's so bubbly. So I remembered him. And so the second time I crossed paths with him was when I was working for the Mountaineer. And he actually wrote a story and submitted it. And I worked through it with him, edited it a little bit, and I learned so much about him because he is a really great storyteller. He told, it was actually a story that he wrote for the mountain bike or the bike brand that he rides. And he took pieces of that to help promote the Greenbelt, the Revelstoke Illisillouette Greenbelt Society, but also just share a piece about what the Illisillouette Greenbelt means to him. And it is a powerful story. And then the third time I crossed paths with him was when I was working in this nonprofit job, in my current job. Chris is a avid volunteer, And so he's volunteering at all of these events, and I see him all the time. And so literally every job that I've had in Revelstoke, Chris has been a part of it in some way.
Fantastic. I've certainly seen him around town too.
Yeah.
Not in the same capacity, is not how I met him. But
Well, where and how do you see him around town? Because
I see him out on the Greenbelt, just rolling around and being friendly, and I can see that people are drawn to him, and he speaks to people, you know, which is, it's not unusual, but it's noticeable.
Yeah.
And he just projects such a lovely aura.
Yeah, I always see him rolling down Airport Way or on the Greenbelt or at the hockey games. He is really embedded in our community.
Yeah. Well, let's explore more. Let's dive in.
So I'm Chris Miller. I grew up in Smithers, where I ski raced, mountain biked, and tried to do. I was pretty much addicted to anything going fast, and so when I finished high school, I got my electrical training done there, so I became a journeyman electrician when I moved here for a job opportunity, and I had, after being here for a little bit, I kind of knew I was going to stay for a bit. I didn't leave Smithers because I didn't like it or had any reason. I just had an opportunity here. As Revelstoke goes, it's got a nickname, kind of Revelstoke. And like most people, I never left. And so, yeah, been here since 2001. And Revelstoke, has changed immensely since I came here. It was really just a blue-collar working town with obviously everything around, and with technology and more people have come to know about Revelstoke, through social media and whatnot. More and more people are coming here, and it's changed, it's good and bad.
So, Chris, what events have changed your life, and how has that affected your view of Revelstoke and how you move through the landscape in this place?
So, basically, I recreated all through Revelstoke and all around Revelstoke and all the mountains. Before 2014, I had a stroke, and since then, I've learned to get around Revelstoke, and Revelstoke, people always come here because extremeness, everything's the best of everything, but Revelstoke, for people in my position that have to roll, is incredible. We're at the bottom of all the mountains in a river valley, and it's pretty much flat, not quite a mile wide, but I can travel up and down the valley, depending on where I go and what the conditions are. Usually 3 wheels will get me there. I make a choice of what I'm gonna ride, depending on where I'm gonna go and what the conditions are like.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And the reason I wanted to interview you, and we thought about you for Mountain Underground, is because you are such a staple community member. Every job that I've had in Revelstoke, you've come into it somehow. I've worked at the Chamber of Commerce, and you were there. And then I worked at the Mountaineer, and you were writing stories for there. And then I worked at Arts Revelstoke, and you were volunteering there. So I feel like you were a really stand-up member of the community. So I want you to tell me a little bit about the Revelstoke community.
Well, I feel for myself, because I've lost so much physical abilities, mentally I'm still who I was, but I've learned to portray myself like I know I can communicate still, and I like to portray or be in the community smiling, and people, all the different places that we've talked about where I've worked or volunteered, like, I feel that it's a very positive atmosphere that, people are going or come here to visit, and they want to learn about Revelstoke and what we have to offer, and I feel like I have a great knowledge of what we have all around town, and, either able-bodied or disabled. I just feel like, so much like, around, like, people around can learn from what my travels around, and all the different venues that I may go to are always, people.
Yeah. So tell us kind of about the work that you do with the Greenbelt Society, or how you've had an impact on the trails here.
I think, like, with one thing I've learned, like, with volunteer boards and, like, the Greenbelt Society, is that, people like myself and yourself, people that volunteer for different things, you make a huge difference. Like, I know my whole life I was brought up through volunteers, and I feel like, because of my physical appearance and how I get around, like, I am noticed, and the Greenbelt Society, like, has trails that I can access year round. And, like, for me, like, the Greenbelt being where it's situated, like, right on the very edge of town, it kind of is the border of town.
Yeah.
And, like, people from Midtown can come to the Greenbelt in, like, minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I know I come down here from where I live in minutes, and that's me.
Yeah.
And, like, conditions like this, like, I can...
It's a whole new
enjoy
perspective of our town, like, being down here. I feel like it's...
Yeah, like, I think, for me, before, I always got that I strive to be in the top of every mountain and look down.
Yeah.
And, like, out in the middle of the valley in the flats, and you can look up, you almost, like, you obviously have a totally different perspective, but you get that same gratification.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's beautiful down here.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we had, because Mountain Underground is about introducing people to this place that is Revelstoke, and kind of digging a bit deeper than what you were talking about earlier, that extreme side of things. So maybe something that could put it in perspective for us is, how does Revelstoke compare to Smithers in terms of community and all of the things?
I think, like, I mean, I've been gone from the community of Smithers for so long, but
yeah,
people in that area, like, you gotta want to go there. And people don't just pass through, like, they go and they, they grow roots there, and, like, they support the community, like, and they do. The community is really, really tight there. I feel the community, being that I'm not originally from here, I would say the community is very tight here, and the community makes Revelstoke, and that's what I love about our towns, are that, they're similar size, and the community is tight, and it makes it bent, like, makes everything we do, like, people come here and realize that Revelstoke has a small town community still.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's why you're Revelstoke?
Yeah, I think like the hard part about the community in Revelstoke is it's very transient, and it's harder, like being on the Trans-Canada Highway and the main artery, like a lot of people pass through here and they're here for a short time, and you know, many stay, and it's hard. I feel for the people that, you know, luckily I moved here in the time when you could get established and you could afford to live there. Now, people can't really afford, like, they come and most cannot afford to stay here. And if you do afford to stay here, you're working, like, all the time just to afford
Don't I know
to
it?
live here.
Yeah. Yeah, like working multiple jobs, and I feel like I came here to do all these like action sports and things that I love to do, and then I found myself being pulled more and more towards all these jobs that are really community focused because A, it's what you have to do, but B, because it also, there's so many opportunities, which I feel is a positive to get involved and to be a part of things. Where do you see the future of Revelstoke going? Where do you see us in the future?
I like the future of Revelstoke. I see, like, Revelstoke physically doesn't have the area to grow to much bigger, like more and more developments like the one in Shelter Bay and stuff, where I thought, you know, at first I was like, holy, something's like, but I think in 10 years, like, Shelter Bay will be full.
Yeah.
And, like, that'll be kind of the rural. I think people are going to try and establish themselves maybe a little further out of town. Like, I don't, like, physically and financially, like, for people to buy in town is out of reach.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, I don't have a crystal ball to read that, you know, things are gonna plateau, but I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't see prices becoming any lower. Like, I think of places like other resort towns where, you know, financially it's become unattainable for middle class, lower class to even buy a house here.
Yeah.
Not to even buy a house. I more see, like, you know, like my daughter, I know she's born and raised here, but she's gonna show, like, European families are gonna, I think, the children are gonna take over their parents' house.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it's going to be.
And, like, there's very little land left in town, and the land that's in town is super expensive, but now to build a place, like, so much money, like,
So expensive. Yeah.
so
Yeah. And what do you want visitors who learn about our town, come to our town, prepare to visit our town to know about us?
I think, like, visitors that are coming into town, like, you know, have to know they're gonna learn, depending on the conditions when they get here, like the surroundings of Revelstoke. And if you come here and you get lucky with a few nice days, you're like, it'll change your life.
Yeah.
Like, you will always come back here. Like, Revelstoke, being situated in the Columbia Valley with the stunning mountains all around, and you have access to all the mountains, like, it's hard to beat.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's not even just the mountains, it's the river, it's these trails, it's like the fact that we have so many dedicated people kind of like yourself, where the town is always opening up new things, new opportunities, new everything. Like, I found different ways of relating to this town that I never thought I would, because I always thought I was just coming here for the mountains and the skiing and whatnot, you know? It surprised me. So I hope it surprises other people too.
I think, like, the more time you spend here, or depending on the time that you're here, and you get to go to, like, say, an Arts Revelstoke music event or something, and you're like, wow, I'm listening to music, like, right here. Like, last weekend, like, or the other weekend when they had the Winter Carnival. Like, the weather timed out perfect for it, and, like, listening to music under that parachute, like, I mean, people that see that, they're like,
doesn't get much better.
We're very lucky.
We
I
are.
think being around in Revelstoke and timing is everything, and, like, I enjoy going downtown in the summertime and listen to the outdoor music in the gazebo. Like,
Yeah.
that is an incredible thing, and we have, like, tourists that come here in the summer months, and you tell them, like, go downtown, like, this evening there's live music every night of the summer.
Yeah.
And people are like, really? And they...
In Revelstoke?
Yeah, and they go downtown, like, and it's not just, like, low-end music. Some of it is incredible, and most every night it's good.
Yeah.
Even though it might not be my genre of music that I really enjoy, I'm like, wow, there's some very talented artists.
Yeah. Yeah, we are lucky here with all the people and the experiences that come our way.
Yeah. Like, I think, there's so many things, like, to go up above the dam, and in the summertime, like, to be able to swim in a lake like that, like, or, like, Cell Mountain, Martha Creek Trail, like,
oh yeah,
to ride, like, from the peak of the mountain right down to the lake.
So incredible.
It's pretty incredible. And, I mean, that's, like, people that come here to recreate besides skiing, like, you can recreate year-round, and there's always something that's incredible, like, the best you ever do anywhere.
Yeah.
I did hear you say you were an action sports guy, and now you've transitioned down into the valley dwelling. But we had a previous conversation, and I went out and I went on the Greenbelt and on these trails when the snowbanks were really high, which is not the case right now, and just realized what a level of commitment that is.
I feel like I've learned that, well, I always was, like, very active, and I've learned more now that I don't obviously have the same level of activity, but I've learned, like, that we gotta keep moving. And, it's so accessible from my house to, like, depending on what I ride, like, daily I'm out looking around, and I'm just like, even I might have seen every day for 20 years, I'm still like, wow, look at that.
So if you had a message to other people, I don't think it's called adaptive, but if you had a message to other people who want to come and access our trails, the first thought of Revelstoke might be that they couldn't. So what would you tell them and how to prepare?
I think, like, maybe somewhere like the tourism mental place, and they can provide, like, to go to somewhere like that if you have no idea of town, and they know the different places to access these trails, and like the paved dike around town. I always tell visitors, like, if you're only got a few hours, you feel like going for a walk, like, and you're parked downtown, get a coffee, walk up Mackenzie, walk down 7th Street to the community center, walk around the green belt, or, well, the paved dike, what we call the black belt, and walk, like, to the skate park and back up 8th Street to Mackenzie, and you've done, like, a perfect loop of the valley that gives you, like, every perspective, north, south, east, west, like, of kind of how Revelstoke is situated in the Columbia Valley, and you can really see, like, all the mountains around us and the Columbia River and the Illicilla, and get a feel for how Revelstoke is situated.
What about, like, wheelchair accessible to the forests and...
Like, the Greenbelt trails, I wouldn't say they're not wheelchair accessible. Depending on the chair you have, they are, like, they're flat, and the surface is, like, hard packed, dirt, gravel, and, like, the Kovach Park, skateboard park, like, gives you access to the Greenbelt trails from right there, and you, like, no matter, like, you can be in a wheelchair. Like, I wouldn't say to do it independently, but there might be, like, the odd place you need help, but for the most part, you're gonna be able to, like, get into nature, like, right there.
Do you have anything you want to say that we haven't asked you directly?
I think, like, the Greenbelt itself is a whole volunteer, like, everything's volunteer. It's not, the city is not really involved financially at all with the Greenbelt, so all the maintenance and grooming, winter grooming you see is all voluntarily done, and the financial costs of it, like, we're very fortunate to have a guy that, kind of spearheaded buying the grooming equipment and bit of an experiment to seeing what we have now today. And like, when people get out on these trails on days like today, it's like no other place.
Doesn't get better.
No.
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe we should go roll.
We're
done.
We can. Do you want to do that, Jill? Like.
No, I mean, like, yeah. Do we have anything else to add?
I don't know so much if I have, like, anything more to add. Like, if you want to talk about, my future a bit, like, of sort of how I became and what I'm doing now to keep busy. Like, when I'm not on my bike, I got certified as an education assistant, so I'm now able to go into, like, I'm able to access both the elementary and the high school, and I love being in the school system, and I feel quite honestly, like, it's my opportunity to give back. So many people have given me so much and helped me so much since I've had my stroke that if I can make a positive influence on a child or some children throughout, that's a win for me.
I'm kind of bummed to be back inside. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah. It was a gorgeous day out there.
It was. And the fog did burn off.
It did burn off. And to be fair, after you left,
Yeah.
we got our stuff back to the car, and then Chris went for a rumble because
yeah.
it was so nice. And you couldn't wait for the snow to get too soft, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's not been a good snow year.
It has not been a good snow year.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings to mind how I was saying that it's so committing. Like what he does is so committing. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about the valley dwelling and how that challenge has come forward for him and what's it like to be in the valley when he used to be quite a mountain guy. But when you put yourself in his shoes and at that level with big snowbanks and you can't turn your bike around, you're not really sure how cold you are except by how much time you spent out there relative to the ambient temperature.
Yeah.
It's a committing. He's an athlete.
Yeah, he totally is. Yeah. And I think, that's so evident in the mark that he's made in our community. He talked about it a little bit, but I feel like he's maybe a little humble too. But there's bike trails that he's helped build that we didn't touch on too much. And he's been instrumental in all the work that the Illicilluit Greenbelt Society has been doing as well, because he's out there and those trails mean a lot to him. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing we talked about a bit is that his role as an educational assistant in the school, in high school and the elementary school. He took the training and he was very eloquent about an opportunity to give back. And that so many people have helped him since his stroke.
Yeah.
And he felt that spending time with kids is, really rewarding, but also really valuable to them and to our community, for them being educated on someone who's had some hard knocks and keeps going, and how his life has opened up in different ways that he didn't expect.
Yeah. And I like how he said he was raised by volunteers, and that's kind of why he is the community member that he is. But I also resonate with him that, this place, there's so much to it. There's mountains outside and there's adventures to be had within them, but there's also so much more to this place that has to do with our community that you wouldn't see if you were just driving through on the highway. And
I tend to get sucked into that kind of like boom, boom, adrenaline,
yeah,
everything's like furious and hardcore. And yet with these experiences, like us putting ourselves out there a bit into the community and just trying to forge my way a little, there's this really soft cushion, and people do, catch you when you bend.
Yeah. And
it's pretty lovely.
It is really nice. And I like the comparison that he made to Smithers. It's not that we're not your typical mountain town, because Revelstoke is your typical mountain town. It's just maybe that people don't stumble on other places in British Columbia quite as easily. So he was saying where he grew up, Smithers, you have to want to be there. And it's out there, but it still has beautiful mountains. It still has a river running through it. So what makes our town so different?
Where people come and stay, even though they didn't plan to.
And get Revelstoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that came up in our project-based conversations we had before, like the dam and the highway. And then some people came and left, but some people stayed. Yeah. And endured the hardships that were required to stay.
Yeah. And I like to think that it's also this this undertone, this feeling of mountain underground that we're trying to capture, the nitty, the gritty, those stories, the people who haven't lost the meaning of this place from through all the changes that it's had. I like to think that I can kind of feel that feeling in town. And I like to think that people who get Revelstoke, they can also feel the authenticity of this place. And I don't know, maybe some of these stories that we're bringing to light will, just reinforce that feeling a little bit more and preserve that feeling in Revelstoke, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think it's a community of it's a community of people, but it's also there's space in the community for people who are less community minded but committed to being here at the same time.
Well, I think the biggest adventure that I've had in Revelstoke so far has happened right here on the valley floor. You know, with my job, with the people that I've met, with the hobbies that I picked up, like none of them are what I expected them to be, and that's totally okay. They're not the big mountain adventures that I came here for, and I'm so happy that they're not. So happy that they're different.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. We're getting somewhere, aren't we?
We are getting somewhere. Cheers.
Cheers. Revelstoke is home to the Snayaks, Secwepemc, Ktunaxa, and Syilx people.
Come visit us, spend some time, and learn more about life along the Columbia River.